Today's episode of the Apter Chat is brought to you by Blue Chew, the little blue chewable that makes men doable. And we have a brand new, another member of the Blue Chew crew here with us. What's up?
It's me. It's Rock and Roll Jingle Man.
Rock and Roll Jingle Man.
Jingle Man. By the way, you may know my brother Tex. Tex was on like your first few episodes.
Oh, so this is a family thing.
We are a family. That's right. Tex and Blue Chew and me. So I found out on one of your tweeters there that you was having a jingle contest.
I don't know who posted that.
I got it on my tweeter. You know, my brother Tex is a country western guy. I'm more of a rock and roll guy. So can I sing you part of a jingle?
I almost feel like I don't have a choice.
Ooh, the moment I saw you, I used my Blue Chew. It was good for me. It was good for you. Ooh, Blue Chew. What'd you think?
That may have been the most rock and roll thing I've ever heard in my life.
It was actually done a cappella. But you know what? If you want to be a virile fella, you gotta do the Blue Chew. Tell them, so says Shernoff.
I would be more than happy to tell you all about it. Now you can increase your performance and get the extra confidence in bed that you've been looking for. So listen up. BlueChew.com. That's blue, like the color blue. BlueChew.com brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. And you can take them anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach. And since they're chewable, they work up to twice as fast as a pill, so you can be ready whenever the opportunity arises. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package, so no in-person doctor's visits, no waiting in the pharmacy. Best of all, there's no more awkwardness. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Right now, we have got a very special deal for our Apter Chatters. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first shipment absolutely free when you use your special promo code BILL. That's B-I-L-L. Just pay $5 shipping. Again, that's BlueChew.com, B-L-U-E. Promo code BILL, B-I-L-L, to try it free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the Apter Chat.
I got a reprise.
Please.
All right, I can't lie. I'm not Tex's brother. This is Tex. I just wanted some more airtime.
Oh, I was suspicious of
But
this.
here's my reprise, all right? I used Blue Chew. It was good for me. It was good for you, Blue Chew. Ooh,
Oh my.
Blue Chew.
BlueChew.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Apter Chat. I am Josh Shernoff, and as always, I am joined by the one and only wonderful Willie, Bill Apter. Bill, how are you?
Wonderful Willie, if you will. You know, I've got so many comments from so many fans out there that we've been chatting up. They keep asking me to do that Dusty Rhodes imitation. And one fan sent me an email. They said, if the WWE ever decided to put me in the Hall of Fame, would I do it in the Dusty voice, my acceptance speech? And yeah, I would love to. But Ted DiBiase, who we're going to have on a future Apter Chat.
Yes.
For years, Ted DiBiase's 30, 40 years, he always asked me to do my Jerry Lewis Nutty Professor imitation.
One of my favorite
movies. He said if they ever had, well, thank you. The original one, not the Eddie Murphy
The original
movie.
one is one of my favorite movies.
Right. Was starring Jerry Lewis. He wrote it. He starred in it. He produced it. And DiBiase said to me, if you ever get up there, I'm going to scream out in the middle that you have to accept it in your Nutty Professor Jerry Lewis voice. Otherwise, he'll come and he'll just get up and pound me until I do it. So
hey, here's an idea for the Apter Chatters. Maybe we should start. We mentioned this, I feel like, in a show in the past, but I think it's time for Bill Apter to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. And I feel like if anyone's listening to this podcast, they more than likely agree. So we need to figure out some sort of hashtag or something when it starts to get time for them to be thinking about it, which they're probably already thinking about this year's.
they probably are.
Yeah, we need Bill Apter.
That would be an honor.
Yeah. And can I say, you don't even need to ask. The answer is yes, I will induct you.
Well, people have asked me if I was to get that honor. And by the way, right now they don't have a category for people that do what I do and what I did back then. And I would accept it if it was just me on behalf of all the teams that I worked with at the magazines. But no, there's really, beside you, there's one person who I really think would be the person to induct me.
Who's
Do you
that?
know who that would be?
No.
Take a guess. I'll give you 5 guesses.
5
Go for
guesses. Oh man.
Yes.
Triple H.
5 choices. No.
I swear to, if it's Nick Hausman.
No.
Who else would induct you? Stephanie?
No.
Ric Flair?
No.
At this point, I'm just going off of the cover of your book. Is wrestling fixed?
I didn't know it was broken. Come on, you have one more.
One more, Jerry the King Lawler.
You hit it right on the head.
There you go.
You hit it right on the head. Back in the day when Joey Styles was with the WWE,
Mm-hmm.
I would have said Joey Styles because he worked for us at the Pro Wrestling Illustrated family of magazines, and he knew exactly what I did back then. He was more aware of it than anyone. But due to the relationship with Jerry the King Lawler and the whole Andy Kaufman situation, and he and I being friends, since when he first started, he'd be the guy.
So to get this straight, Jerry the King Lawler is going to induct you, and then I will be accepting on your behalf. Is that how we're doing this, or what's?
What is the Apter Chat going to have me on assignment that night? Yeah,
listen, Bill Apter couldn't make it to the Hall of Fame, so they
he's
sent
on
me.
assignment.
Yeah.
But no, of course, that would be the biggest honor of my life.
Yeah, that would be great. Jerry Lawler would be a perfect person to induct you.
Yeah, and I am in quite a few Hall of Fames.
Of course you are.
Yeah. People have asked me, how come you're not in the Cauliflower Alley one yet? And I don't know the answer to that because they have inducted so many of the important people that do what I do. And I think last year or the year before, my dear friend George Napolitano got in there. And there's so many writers and legendary journalist people in there, and I'm a member.
So should we be lobbying for you to be in both Hall of Fame? Should we just pick which Hall of Fame we want to start with here?
No, I don't want any lobbying for either one, to be honest with you.
Oh, we're not lobbying on your behalf. We're not lobbying because you want us to. We're lobbying because you should be there.
No, I don't want any lobbying because if I'm inducted into Cauliflower or the WWE, I want it to be from them saying he deserves it at this point.
Well, I think lobbying or not, I think everybody could agree that you deserve it. But
can I have a chant? Can I have a chant?
You
deserve it.
You deserve it.
Thank you.
But speaking of legends like yourself, we saw a lot of legends this past weekend.
We certainly did. It was a packed full of legends weekend.
I saw some pictures online that you posted out there. Of course, I was there when the pictures were actually taken. But Tony Gurria, how about that?
Wait. Before we talk about the people,
I
want to thank James and Terrence from Legends of the Ring.
Yes.
Which is the longest running wrestling convention. They've done like 5,000 of them already. And all in the same place in Monroe Township, New Jersey. And they give us the red carpet treatment. And I want to publicly thank them. But
this was my first experience, with the Apter Chat going there as anything other than a fan, and they could not have been kinder to myself and Calvin, who came with us. Calvin, we've mentioned him on the show. We'll mention him a little bit later. He's our tech guy, and They were just super nice to us and welcoming, and it was an awesome experience.
Well, most of the response that I got was from the picture, the single picture of me with the incredible Renee Young.
Ah, yes. So you didn't get a response to the picture that had Calvin and myself in it too?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not.
I did. We got some good ones. Renee Young, yeah, that was fantastic to see. I wasn't expecting to meet her there. A very, very kind person.
Did you look at the roster before you went?
I did, but I didn't. I missed
gave it
her.
to you.
I know. I was looking at it. You know who I did? You know who I saw was supposed to be there, and maybe they were there, but I didn't get a chance to see them. The old Beverly Brothers.
Oh, I got to see them. Mike
Did
Enos
you? Where
and Wayne
were
Bloom.
they?
They were in the big time autograph room.
Okay. So I was in the small time autograph room.
The Beverly Brothers, but before that, Josh, what were they called in the AWA?
I don't know the tag team, but I know Wayne Bloom and.
Wait, you got to answer the question.
Oh, I don't know.
It was the Destruction Crew.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, when they were in the AWA.
I want to say it was either Bo or Blake. I'm not sure which one it was. It was the one who didn't have the mustache.
That would have been Wayne.
Wayne Bloom, not Mike Enos, right? Yeah, right. Mike Enos had the mustache. So Wayne Bloom was one of the people. One of the, I believe, the only time I've ever gone backstage at an event that you were not actually responsible for getting me back there. It was actually before I even met you. And I went backstage because a family friend worked for Prism. Remember Prism?
Yes, it was a network.
Right,
yes.
And their offices were in the Spectrum, so we were able to go backstage.
Well, no. Remember, I was living in New York at that time.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So you weren't there, but we went back and
I wasn't in Prism.
Okay.
Waiting for that opening. But go ahead.
So, no, but got us backstage, and yeah, he was one of the people that one of the first wrestlers that I got to meet was Wayne Bloom. So I was actually looking forward to getting to meet him again, but it wasn't to be.
You know what? I didn't like when they came in as the Beverly Brothers because these were two He-Men, and it just seemed like the name, the Beverly Brothers, was not a He-Man type of name.
I never got what the Beverly Brothers were.
Me?
You know what I mean? Like, especially at a time when everyone had a gimmick. Like, what were they?
We're going to get them on the show.
I would love that.
I got phone numbers on both of them.
You know who else I would love to have on the show? It doesn't have to be. We don't have to have all three on at the same time because I think 5 people talking on a podcast could get a little confusing. But I would love to have Lanny Poffo on the show.
Oh, done. Lanny is, and there, by the way, there is chat around, not Apter Chat yet, that he may be one of the new broadcasters on the Access TV New Japan show in the upcoming feud. That's what I'm hearing.
Wow.
Or something to do with Ring of Honor.
Okay.
So again, it's chatter. But we saw Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond.
I did not see Paul Diamond.
No, not Paul Diamond. Wait a minute. The tag team, Pat Tanaka and...
Are you talking about the Orient Express?
Yes. Pat Tanaka and... Why can't I think of his name at the moment?
Paul Diamond was...
No. Pat Tanaka and...
Sato.
Right.
Yeah, Sato and Tanaka. That was originally... And then Kato came in, but I believe Kato was Paul Diamond under a mask.
Well, Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka
They were Bad Company.
Yeah, exactly. They originated that gimmick. That was AWA, and I think Diamond Dallas Page was involved with them as well.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I think Page may have managed them. We'll have to look all this up.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. But I know it was Sato and Tanaka were the original Orient Express, and then Kato came in and he was masked and he was Paul Diamond.
Yeah,
and it's an interesting thing about Paul Diamond. Why is it that he had so many gimmicks under a mask?
Oh, well, wait a minute. You don't know the real part of this, is that back in the 60s, Mr. Weston, my mentor, when he was doing the magazines, there was another Paul Diamond. Wasn't the same guy.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's another Paul Diamond. Now, sitting next to them
Okay.
were the Rougeaus.
So wait a
Raymond
minute, but was Paul?
Okay,
So
go ahead.
was it Paul Diamond? Was he there at the show at Legends of the
Yes.
Ring?
He was sitting right next to Tanaka.
Had he been wearing a mask, I would have recognized him.
No, it was him. So next to them were Raymond and Jacques Rougeau.
Yes.
They were together. Then we saw Psycho Sid.
Oh man, that was great to be. So I quote unquote met him for the first time, but that wasn't actually the first time that I'd ever met him. I met him back when you took me backstage at an ECW pay-per-view. I believe it was. I want to say it was Hardcore Heaven '99, and he was back there. And I remember in like their little catering area, which made up almost the entire backstage area. This was in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I remember he was just standing there hitting make-believe, holding a make-believe baseball bat, hitting make-believe baseballs. And
now, I'm glad you said hitting, because he said something to us that surprised me. He said that he's going into boxing.
Yeah, he said he's been boxing, and I said, I feel sorry for whoever you're boxing. And
yeah, really?
He laughed and said that, no, he's for the most part just, I think he's just using it for cardio and training. But he'd mentioned that he was, that he competed in Golden Gloves when he was younger, which I never knew that before.
Yeah. No, I could have told you that.
But still a very intimidating man, but nice as can be.
You know who else was there? And he's been advertised at a lot of the conventions, and he hasn't been there due to ill health, but it was so great to see the former multi-time National Wrestling Alliance heavyweight champion of the world, Harley Race.
Harley Race was there?
You didn't see him, and his line was a mile long.
What? Okay, can we talk for a second about this?
He was there in the same room, Josh.
I was there with you the entire time. Harley Race was not there. When I went back in there, Kevin Nash and Sid, there were a number of people there, but I think Harley Race had already... Well, I was doing some other stuff that we can't really talk about just yet, but I was working on some other stuff.
Yeah, but no, Harley was there, and he had a huge line.
I would have loved to have met Harley Race.
Well, he and I saw each other, and I've known him his whole career, and I went over to him, and he gave me a big hug and a big kiss and said, you know, we got to talk more. I miss talking to you, Bill.
Well, I think we need to get him on the show.
I think we will.
All right.
I think we will. But yeah, it was a great experience. And then we got to talk to the very obnoxious Billy Gunn.
Oh, Bill, what are you talking about? Obnoxious. Guy's just a wonderful man.
No, he's been very obnoxious to me.
No, I feel like he and I were just on the exact same page.
Well, let me tell you something. There was a video that's been taken down from YouTube many, many, many years ago. I was at an Awesome Wrestling TV event, and I interviewed Billy Gunn and Road Dogg, and the language that Billy Gunn used on me, and every time he has seen me since then, is not very complimentary.
So, I think this is just all one big misunderstanding, because Billy Gunn has never been anything but kind to me. He and I had I remember a great conversation while we were there when I mentioned the Apter Chat podcast, and he told me how much he was looking forward to talking to me specifically and not you. Oh, now that I think about that.
Yeah. Actually, he didn't call it the Apter Chat. I was standing there. He called it the Chat podcast. Yeah,
the Chat podcast. Well, now it makes a lot of sense when he was saying, Josh, you really need to get your name in the show. And I was like, come on, it's all kind of starting to make sense.
All right,
well, you know what? I'm going to, he was there with his son, Austin, who, if anybody has seen Austin Gunn in the ring, it is just like, it is spitting image of his father. It's incredible. And I'm going to reach out to Austin, and we are going to schedule to get both Austin and Billy Gunn on the Apter Chat in a future episode.
On the chat.
And we are going to hash this out between you and Billy Gunn.
Okay, well, it's all on his side. Also, there were a lot of guys from Impact Wrestling there.
Yes.
Ross Forman, who is the head of media relations, who will be on our show today.
Yes.
Was there, and it was great to see Ross, because he was one of the head guys, one of the head publicists at back in the days of WCW, everybody says, but back in the days of WCW, it was great to see him. We saw Tessa Blanchard.
Yes, Tessa Blanchard, the
Yes.
the Knockouts champion, retained her title at Bound for Glory, which is something we're going to talk about, as well as SoCal Uncensored was there. Who else was there from Impact? There are a few more people there. Hey, you know who I got to talk to for a little bit? A guy I've been a fan of for years, Hurricane Helms.
Oh, he's great.
and
He's been on the video Apter Chat many times.
Well, he's going to be on the real Apter Chat sometime in the near future.
On the Apter Chat podcast.
The
And
Apter Chat
so
podcast.
will young Flip Gordon. He
Yes.
was yeah. And you know what I clued him into?
What's that?
I clued him into, I said, did he ever hear of the comedian Flip Wilson? And he said, yeah, people keep, older people keep saying Flip Wilson instead. And I took out my cell phone and I showed him some videos of Flip Wilson as both Flip and the character Geraldine. And we will have, there was this big controversy before All In, whether Flip Gordon was going to be on or not.
He made it. He made it in there.
We need a vote. We need a vote here. We need the Apter Chatters to let us know, should Flip Gordon be on the Apter Chat?
Ooh, we'll have to put a poll out. That'd be great.
What do you think?
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think, spoiler, he's going to be on no matter what they say, but...
No. You know what?
No?
This is a shoot.
Ooh.
This is a shoot.
Okay.
All right? Is he going to be all in on the Apter Chat? It's up to the Apter Chatters.
All right. We're going to put that poll out there. I think that's a great.
And I think right now there are some things going on in the wrestling world. My right arm is starting to go around what feels like an imaginary head. It's time for Headlock on Headlines.
All right. First up on our headlines here, Bound for Glory took place at the Melrose Ballroom in Queens, New York. And myself and Calvin Tan had the opportunity to go there live. We were taken care of by Ross Forman. We'd mentioned before, Ross will be on the show later. So we're not going to go too deep into Bound for Glory.
By the way, also during our branding here,
Yes.
You brought something out that we should be calling it the Apter Chat podcast. So
Yes.
branding from this show on, whenever we mention the Apter Chat, it's now going to be the Apter Chat podcast.
Well, it's a good thing because, you have had the Apter Chat for a number of years, the name, and that's where the name, of course, came from when we were deciding on a name for the podcast. But yeah, this is not the video Apter Chat that you've done in the past. So yeah, I think the Apter Chat podcast is the way to do it. So
it's different from the OneWrestling.com Apter Chat.
yes,
That's different.
yes, it's definitely different than that. But something that people should also be checking out.
Thank you.
So yeah, like I said, Ross Forman really took care of us. We were given such great treatment for being there, and it was just a fantastic event, start to finish. There was a video that I posted I took right after the show down at ringside, and I believe I said that bell to bell, start to finish, this was a fantastic night of professional wrestling.
It
really
was. And I saw it. I saw most of the show, and it was really exciting. And we're going to discuss this with Ross later, but Impact Wrestling has this something going on that's making Impact Wrestling just even more exciting. And we'll talk to Ross. But the big controversy, of course, is after losing the heavyweight championship to Johnny Impact, Austin Aries walked out.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what happened. Nobody's really sure. The rumor going around is that his contract is up, but he lost fair and square, and he got up and had a lot to say to people about it. So he was not happy.
Keep in mind what happened at the press conference at the Hall of Fame,
right?
When this was supposed to be a classy Hall of Fame ceremony, and Abyss had gotten his award. And thank you, congratulations to Abyss, and who will be on a future Apter Chat podcast. But during that Hall of Fame ceremony, the the battling that went on both physically and mentally between Austin Aries and
Verbally.
Johnny Impact. Yeah, I mean, it was just
So and that had been going on for a while. They were on TMZ. They were and I have to tell you, and this is something that I absolutely loved about this match. The way they worked this match, it was you felt like this was a shoot. And I know I'm using the inside terminology and all that stuff, but it felt that way. It felt like it almost made me look at wrestling and say, I wish they would ban, or not ban, but I wish they would do less punches and kicks unless they were going to really do some damage. Because these guys they were wrestling.
they were hurting each other.
But they were
even
legitimately
during the punches and kicks.
Yeah, but they were legitimately wrestling each
Yeah.
other in the beginning there. Takedowns and reversals. And to me, at the core of this, it's wrestling. And, as an amateur, a former amateur wrestler myself, I loved seeing that. And Calvin was sitting next to me, and he also was an amateur wrestler. And just, so to watch that, you're looking at that, and that just felt so real. And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And that question is what I love to ask. When I watch pro wrestling, I want to walk away. I want to be a mark for it. I want to be duped by it, if that makes any sense. And I think you do too.
It does. And when I watched that show, so much of that show went back to the days of pro wrestling. It really did. So the question now
Yes.
is that Austin Aries, if the controversy is this real or is this a storyline, a shoot or a work, correct?
Correct.
So my feeling, I was going to give you my feeling, but I'm confused by it. It's drawn that fine line that I have not felt in so many years that, I'm not really sure, because they, more so than the physical end at that press conference, was verbally how that got out of hand in front of legit press, and some fans that were there as well.
But even just in the match, there were so many times there was a couple of kicks that then were just like instantly back up in each other's face. They weren't selling it like you normally would. So I'll say this: if it's a work, they did a fantastic job. And I
gotcha.
Can I tell you honestly? I hope it's a work. I hope it's a work, because if it wasn't, if it was a shoot, then it's just then it's a little unfortunate, and it's two people that maybe should have been, able to kind of do this without it getting so carried away. But if it's a work, then they are just doing it. They are doing so well to be able to make fans like us who have been in the business or have been fans for as many years as we have to stop and go, ooh, I think that may have been real. That's the beauty of pro wrestling.
The big question here is, where does Austin Aries go from here? Because as you know, he's been a huge advocate for years for what his other life and his other businesses, the almost like the holistic vegetable,
plant-based diets and whatnot.
Yeah, so he might be doing more of that. And I'm going to reach out and see if we can snare him for the Apter Chat podcast. But it was
I feel like right now he's probably radio silent, not wanting to talk to anybody right now.
I've already tried, so
yeah,
he's radio silent. But as you said, top to bottom, it was great. And we'll talk to Ross a little bit later.
So we'll go more into detail with that. So
now, one of the things that I also wanted to mention, and it just came up here, that Ring of Honor also ran, and they have new tag team champions.
Yeah.
So Ring of Honor ran the same night as Bound for Glory. Ring of Honor ran in Philadelphia, and it was an excellent show. And one of the major things that happened there is the long-reigning tag team champions, the Brisco brothers, were defeated. There were two other teams. It was a triple threat. Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky was one of those teams, and the Young Bucks was another one of those teams. And Kazarian and Scorpio Sky are now the new Ring of Honor tag team champions. Congratulations.
Yeah, what a fantastic match. Not that anyone should really be surprised with that amount of talent in the ring. But man, what an amazing time to be a wrestling fan. When you think about what was going on, as we said earlier, we'll go into more detail later with Ross Forman about Impact. But you have in New York City, you have Impact Wrestling Bound for Glory, which was a fantastic show. And then you have, at the exact same time going on in Philly, you've got Ring of Honor's show with just incredible match after incredible match. And it's, it almost reminded me a little bit of that feeling while I'm watching Impact. I get out of Impact and I get home and I go to see, like, okay, I got to see what happened at Ring of Honor. And it almost reminded me of the Monday Night Wars. And I know some people might say, oh, how's that the same as the Monday Night Wars? But I think you get what I mean by that.
Oh, I definitely do. But you know what? I have an idea.
Okay.
Why don't we, since we've been talking about Impact Wrestling's Bound for Glory, why don't we go to our interview with the head of media relations of Impact Wrestling, Ross Forman. Ross Forman, it's so great to have you on the Apter Chat podcast.
Hey, Bill, how is it possible this is the first time I've ever been on the Apter Chat?
Well, you know what? We're going down the line and getting the important people one at a time, and it's finally your time to be here.
Well, I remember I had your name at the top of my list, and then Bill kind of shuffled it.
I know you did, Josh. I saw your list in person in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so Ross, what I wanted to talk to you about, of course, is the Bound for Glory was an incredible show, and we were talking about the entire card, match for match. Everything was just really fabulous, and that Impact Wrestling seems to be really making waves now. It's like a brand new Impact Wrestling. But one of the things that's being talked about, of course, all over social media is the walkout of Austin Aries. Would you like to address that?
What are you talking about? His entrance to the ring? Yeah, I don't know. They get the music. He walks out.
Well, when he walked out of the building right after his loss to Johnny Impact, the new heavyweight champion.
Oh, I wasn't quite sure which direction you were going there, Bill.
Yes. I knew about the entrance. Austin
lost. Johnny's the new champion. Let's move on. That's the way I look at it. The way I think a lot of people at Impact are looking at it. That, you know what? It's a new era. Johnny Impact's a new world champion. Good for him. Let's see who's gonna come at him first.
What do you feel, Ross, has been the key to Impact Wrestling currently making a brand new product that the fans are really, really getting into?
Well, I think two things that come to mind certainly is creative. I think the storylines, they're very good. There's not one that, I sit at home and think as a fan, not as a, person behind the scenes that I'm bored with it. I don't enjoy watching. Everything on our show is compelling, and that leads from creative into the talent. I think our roster, I think people have said it, and, I certainly am biased when I say it. It's the best, roster out there. Man in, man out, woman in, woman out. It's strong. Everybody delivers every match, every night, and they make it fun to watch Impact Wrestling. I always say that people, will say to me, and they might dog Impact Wrestling online. I don't like that old TNA Impact Wrestling. Well, you know what? That's probably because you haven't watched it in 3, 4, 5 years. And those people still live in that old era. And you know what? Yeah, there were good things back in the day, but there were still bad things back in the day. But give us a shot today. Give the 2018 going into 2019 Impact Wrestling a shot, because I guarantee you will be impressed.
And I know Josh has a few questions, but when you're saying give it a shot, where can people who don't know where they can watch Impact Wrestling, where can they go to see it?
Impact Wrestling every Thursday night on Pop TV.
And if one does not get Pop TV?
Well, I mean, most people do get Pop, but if you don't, you certainly got the internet, you get YouTube. There's enough content out there. You can go to impactwrestling.com by Friday morning. By the time you wake up, there's enough review of what happened on, Impact the night before. It's a different era. Bill, as you certainly can attest to, and when you were doing magazines, it would take forever before you knew what happened, at a match in Los Angeles. Well, now it's instantaneous.
So I wanted to touch on something that you had said about people, it's been a number of years, because I was one of those people. I was a huge fan of TNA in the days with AJ Styles and Samoa Joe and Team Canada. I remember that time very fondly. There was a time, maybe 5 years ago or whatnot, where things did start. Like you had said, there was some good, but there was some bad, and it just didn't really entertain me as much as I had hoped. Seeing the product recently, and of course seeing Bound for Glory, Bound for Glory is one of the best bell-to-bell shows that I've seen in recent memory. It was fantastic. It had something for everybody, from an entertainment value to actually, hardcore wrestling, like the LAX and OGs, to the hardcore wrestling fan. Do you think that the decision to keep the Impact name, the Impact brand, hurt in maybe being able to get people to jump into because it's such a new product compared to what it had been at the end of the TNA days?
No, I think it's a great name, actually, and it certainly works on a marketing front, on a sponsorship front. It's a lot more appeal to say Impact Wrestling versus TNA Wrestling, when, quite honestly, I heard it every time I would talk to somebody outside of wrestling. TNA, what exactly is this wrestling?
Yeah, I didn't mean as opposed to sticking with TNA. I meant because TNA had shifted to Impact for a decent amount of time, when it kind of got this fresh coat of paint, the decision not to just completely 100% rebrand and go with a completely new name.
I don't think it was necessary. We built the brand, yes, there were, flaws here and there, but you build a brand, at some point you got to say, we're going to stick with the brand, as opposed to, you say with Coke so long, and then all of a sudden it's going to become, Mike's Liquid. I get what you mean. I think you got to stick with it.
And I think sticking with it was a wise choice, because people are starting to really differentiate it, and Impact is kind of becoming its own thing here. And one of the things that I loved about it was Bound for Glory, the venue, which looked fantastic on TV, had a very intimate yet big feel there in person. Can you kind of let us in on the mindset behind the venues that you've been choosing? Obviously, the TV tapings that people see in Canada has such a neat look to it, with the way the lighting's set up in the screen, the blue around and on the ceiling.
Which was, by the way, this was at the Melrose Ballroom in Queens, New York.
Yes.
Sure, Melrose in Queens, and then it was up in the Rebel Entertainment Complex in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've actually been both of them have been very good venues. They work for us. Josh, as you can attest, that Sunday night Bound for Glory, it's crazy in there.
Yeah.
Josh, you were in one spot. I know where you were sitting. You couldn't move. You couldn't even go to get a drink.
No.
It was so crowded in there. And imagine me. I got to walk all around the entire building, different directions. Right. I'd have to go, okay, well, let me go around here through the crowd, and I can't go through the crowd, so I'm going to have to go around, up and over. It's a crazy venue. There were so many people in there. As everybody knows, Bound for Glory was sold out. Mm-hmm. As far as a venue, it's a little small, intimate place. I mean, it's not a 20,000 seat, United Center that we have here in Chicago. But we're not at that point now. And I think it's better. Nobody wants to go to a 5,000 seat arena and have, half of it crowded, and, there's not really that energy. That energy on both Slammiversary and Bound for Glory is
it's great.
Intense.
Yeah.
As intense as anything I've seen in wrestling, in 20 years.
I agree.
So, Ross, to the fan that says, I don't watch that, give us a minute or two of why you should watch this.
Well, first question I would ask is, why don't you watch it? I mean, if you're a wrestling fan, this is a product that delivers. I mean, there's characters that are super engaging. Everybody's putting all out every night. I don't think it's a big talk fest yet. Yes, there's segments that, interviews and back and forth, but the in-ring action is as good as you'll get anywhere. And as I said earlier, if you haven't watched Impact, in a few years, you didn't, it fell out of graces with you for whatever reason, give us a shot now. You'll be impressed, period. These guys and girls are giving their, truly their blood, sweat, and tears. And I think it delivers. It's a product that is very compelling. The storylines, I give full credit to creative, Sanjay Dutt, Jimmy Jacobs, Scott D'Amore, all those guys. They do a great job. It's not a roster of, 250 guys. Well, we could pick this guy and put him here and her and this, there's a limited number of spots on our roster. And somehow these guys, in a way, I don't want to be in their shoes because they're up till, ungodly hours at times for creative meetings. But I think what they've produced has been amazing.
Yeah, it definitely had the feel that you knew this was not something that was put on as filler. This was not something, oh, hey, we need a guy in, whatever. We'll just do this match. It'll be good enough. Everything really feels like it's been well thought out, which as a fan, I think fans nowadays, that's what they're looking for.
Yes,
And I've tried to, I don't have the largest Twitter following in the world, but for the people who do follow me, I tried to really stress just how, if you're not watching this, start watching it, because it really, and I'm not just blowing smoke because we're talking to you, Calvin and I were driving back afterwards just talking about this is one of the best shows we have seen in we don't know how long. And their TV, you said there's not a lot of talking, but I found, even for a pay-per-view, I found that the video packages before, the explanations of how we got to where we are were so good that you felt in just a matter of minutes, you automatically felt invested in the story. So I really think that Impact is well on its way to being considered again by wrestling fans to be a major player.
Ross, before we let you go, we want to have you say a few words about the Hall of Fame ceremony and Abyss being chosen as this year's recipient.
Well, I don't think there's anybody at Impact Wrestling who would deny super deserving. Abyss has been a great entertainer for 15, 16 years. What he's done in that ring, what he's put his body through, is it speaks volumes about it's just deserving. There's no question in my mind that Abyss is a Hall of Famer. What he's done as far as a hardcore wrestler, you think, there were some great matches of so many different people, but I think of Mick Foley, I always think of Abyss.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think that says it right there. I think everybody, whatever company you watch or you cheer for, would say that Mick Foley is, Mr. Hardcore. I'd put Abyss right up there.
Yeah. Okay. So Ross Forman, the head of media relations for Impact Wrestling, give it a shot. It's incredible. And where can fans find you and Impact Wrestling on social media? I'm
kind of more of a Facebook, Twitter person.
Okay.
So you can find me there. Impact Wrestling is at Impact Wrestling on every possible social platform. And I think for Bill, I think we actually do have a MySpace. I think you're still doing MySpace, are you not?
No, my typewriter won't. The screen broke. Yeah.
Actually, Bill, I've heard you're not even at MySpace yet. You're still doing Friendster. Is that true?
Who told you that?
That's okay. Josh is in the back thinking Friendster. I've never heard of that. What is that?
Right.
Josh, be honest. You ever heard of Friendster?
You know what? I don't know how I want to answer that because I think there's a chance you think that I'm a lot younger than I am. So I kind of want to keep that going. But yeah, I do know Friendster and MySpace and all of that.
Never heard of it. Never heard of it.
I never had a Friendster. Never had a Friendster.
I didn't either. I kind of want to go look and see if I remember what my MySpace password would be.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a long time.
Ross Forman, the head of public relations, media relations for Impact Wrestling. Thank you for being on the Apter Chat podcast.
Sounds good. I want to come back, Bill.
Oh, you'll be back. You definitely will.
All righty.
Thank you, Ross.
Thank you so much, and thanks again for the
You got it, guys.
All right.
Anytime.
Thank you again to Ross Forman for taking the time to speak with us and for having us there at Bound for Glory. Bill, I think we have a few more headlocks to throw here, though.
Yes, we do. And let's talk SmackDown 1000. And I want to tell you what I came out from that show thinking more than anything else that went on that show. Even though we have new tag team champions, and there were so many spectacular moments. But the one thing that grabbed me was when Evolution came out.
Oh, yeah.
And Bautista, Ric Flair, Randy Orton, and Triple H all did their little spiel. But that one moment of Bautista when he was talking about how great Triple H made everything, and when he laid that line on, but he never beat him, that little moment that was totally uncomfortable made my night. Do I want to see Triple H against Bautista maybe as one of the major events at WrestleMania next year? In quoting someone who's on SmackDown a lot, hell yeah.
Well, I thought you were going to go with yes, for someone who's on SmackDown a lot. But yeah, absolutely. And it just felt like, I feel like every week we've been talking about the differences between now and attitude.
Wait, hold on. I have to take a dance break. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh man, it's a shame this isn't a video. But I think we've been talking about every week the differences when we going back to when Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker first had their interaction on Raw a few weeks back, and again this was just another example to me of man, just let these guys free. You know what I mean? Let them just go, because this was so entertaining and
compelling.
It was. I will say one other thing that kind of struck me. Randy Orton walking out wearing the suit, he looked 10 years younger. He looked straight out of the original Evolution. Yeah. I don't know if he did his hair a certain way or something or whatever it was, but I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, this doesn't even look like the same guy that was on TV, last week.
No, but one of the other things there was Ric Flair was trying to kind of restore order in case this broke out.
Yeah,
they would have gone right over him had they not respected him.
Yeah, it was also really good to see Ric Flair, who obviously has gone through some health issues that everybody knows about. But man, to see him there is
still
just
the Nature Boy.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about another moment, and again, it was from a veteran that, and a lot of the guys today just can't keep our attention like this. When Edge was sitting down and giving advice to Becky Lynch, I couldn't take my eyes off the TV. He was so freaking compelling. You couldn't. Why can't everyone be like that and be like Bautista and Triple H with that tension? So it's just like...
So it's funny, though, because there are a lot of different ways to look at this. You can look at this from the standpoint of, hey, maybe these guys are veterans so that, they didn't have to stick to a script exactly. They could kind of ad-lib. But it goes back to some of the conversations we've had in the past. Think about the two guys that you just pointed out. Bautista, who is a part of one of the biggest movie franchises going on today, and Edge,
in the galaxy,
yeah. And Edge, who since retiring from the WWE has been acting on show after show. He's steadily acting
and podcasting.
Edge and Christian have an awesome podcast. Edge and Bautista, they have that intangible quality about them that obviously has allowed them to succeed outside of wrestling in the entertainment world. But at the same time, they also have the history behind them in the pro wrestling business that they know how to cut a promo. But what I will say, and I think this is kind of a neat segue because you brought this up, I love Becky Lynch, what they did with her reaction.
That was great.
Yeah. So I think while we're saying, oh man, these younger people can't necessarily do it, she did a great job. Another female who did a great job this past week was Ronda Rousey. It was the best
Absolutely.
Ronda Rousey promo, the best I've seen from her since she started, because I was a huge Ronda Rousey fan when she was in mixed martial arts, and part of the appeal to her was that she was just such a badass. And since coming to the WWE, there's been a lot of, she's all smiles Ronda Rousey, and so happy to be there. The lines that she dropped on Nikki Bella, man, the crowd
about John Cena.
Uh-huh. And I think, and I thought something very interesting, because that crowd was so hot during that promo.
It's a Philly crowd, of course.
But you fast forward, which I'll tell you, I didn't fast forward. And this is this has been the last couple weeks of Raw and SmackDown 1000. This has been the first time in a long time that I haven't felt the need to fast forward through things. Because I usually end up watching it on delay. But it's just something's changing, something's kind of turning. But I think that the Trish Stratus, Lita, Alexa Bliss, Mickie James promo later in the night, the crowd was dead.
Oh, yeah. I don't think they were dead, but you can't follow.
No, and that's where I was curious your opinion on this. Do you think that they just didn't care? Or do you think that it's maybe a combination of that and the fact that it's a 3-hour-long show, and that the fans, when you get as emotionally invested in something as they were earlier in the night for a number of different segments, by the time you get to one that's maybe not quite as, intense, really looking forward to the match, but maybe, it doesn't have the stakes that something else would have. Do you think that maybe that's why the crowd wasn't into it as much?
It's hard it's really hard for me to pinpoint that. I just think that there was an intensity and a realness about that the Bella's Ronda segment that the rest of the show couldn't compete with.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to, we have new tag team champions. The New Day finally have lost the tag team belts. It was a screw job finish.
Yeah, but, how about that? The Big Show.
Yeah, Big Show making his return and being part of that screw job. And now Cesaro and Sheamus are in charge of the belts again.
And they are now 5-time tag team champions.
5-time. I'm not going to do that 5 times. I was absolutely thrilled to see a match that was one of those fantasy matches we would do in the magazine, because they were never in the same place at the same time, really. Nakamura took on the returning Rey Mysterio.
Friend of the show.
Junior, yes.
Rey Mysterio.
Friend of the show. Yeah, you've got to check out, if you haven't heard that episode, go to the apterchat.com, go to the archives, and listen to that show. And not only is Rey Mysterio Jr. on there, but his son Dominic makes an appearance as well, a run-in. But Mysterio and Nakamura for a spot in the World Cup tournament that's going to be at Leave It Blank right now.
Well, it's going to be a crown. It's going to be a crown jewel. We just don't know where Crown Jewel is going to be, and that's actually. Do you mind
World Cup at the Crown Jewel? Correct.
Right. Do you mind if we talk about that for a minute?
Well, we will. But let me just say, I was thrilled to see. Everybody knows that I love the Flying Lucha Libre guys back from the days of Mil Mascaras, and I've always been a supporter of Rey Mysterio Jr. And when the fans started chanting, "You still got it," you said, I was standing there in my living room doing the same thing. And when he did that dive over the bottom rope, I had never seen anybody do that before.
Yeah,
that like belly
to
flop.
continuing to innovate. I think I may have seen him do that a couple of times, but
I've never seen him do
regardless,
that.
it was an impressive move, which is not surprising coming from him.
But Nakamura retains the United States Championship. It was not a
It was
title
non-title,
match.
but they will face each other. I believe it will be at Starrcade. They will be doing another Starrcade event. I want to take a minute to talk about Crown Jewel and the controversy that's going on. Bill, you and I are not going to get political here. That's not what the Apter Chat is.
The Apter Chat podcast.
The Apter Chat podcast is not a political podcast, but many feel that this isn't about politics. I'm curious your opinion. I have my opinion about the show, but more importantly, I want to talk about the fact that Crown Jewel and the World Cup and everything around it were still being heavily promoted on Raw and SmackDown this week. However, there was an absence of the location. They never once said where it would be.
Well, they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do here. And I don't want to get too involved in this because, again, this involves politics. There are so many moving parts to this thing. I hope the show happens somewhere.
Oh, it's going to happen. It'll happen.
But I'm not endorsing them running the show where it's slated to go right now, not by any means.
So Randy Orton just said today, as we're recording this on a Wednesday, Randy Orton was asked, I believe it was on TMZ, and he was asked, what he thinks about them going. And his point that he made was that they're trying to create a better place over there. And by them not going, that's not helping anything. That's not, by them going, his thought and his hope is that this is going to continue to change the environment over there, that this is going to continue
to change.
Yeah,
but wait. The bigger picture here is for what we do is that the pressure of the legit press that the eyes of the world are on WWE and all the money they can make over there is WWE doing this no matter what in Saudi Arabia, or are they going to say that this thing happened? We cannot, in good conscience, do this. So the world is watching them. This is not, an independent wrestling company that can be. This is a publicly traded company, and I'm sure the fans are not thinking that the stockholders, the shareholders, probably have a large voice in this as well.
Yeah, there's a lot that, from what I understand, they've signed a 10-year deal to bring these shows to Saudi Arabia. And these are shows that are, again, this is what I've read, is that they're entirely paid for. So you look at a guy like Shawn Michaels, and we don't know the real reasons why he came out of retirement, but I'm sure he is making, and rightfully so, a pretty significant payday. Well, now you move this show somewhere else, where's that money coming from? There's a lot that needs to be considered. Having said
absolutely.
Having said that, this is a very controversial decision for them one way or the other. And I feel like at this point, because they didn't immediately make that gut decision, hey, we're stopping, we're not going to go, I feel like even if they don't go, there are some people who are not going to let go of the fact that they didn't immediately, in the way that like a Richard Branson immediately cut ties.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
people are going to, negatively look at this because they're going to say they should have had that knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
This has happened. We're not going.
But what I want to do is I want to try and believe that there's more to it, which is maybe why there wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. That it wasn't because they didn't care about
I mentioned that. I mentioned there's too many moving parts.
Yes.
There are more people than just Vince McMahon saying, well, we're going to pull that show or we're going no matter what.
Right. It might not be quite as easy.
No, this is a major corporation.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah. So with that, we'll kind of see what's
Well, wait a minute. There's one more thing that I wanted to talk about. SmackDown 1000. The first thing I saw when that show opened up was the sign in the crowd that Pritchard owns Meltzer.
Ooh.
So we're going to have Bruce on, and we're going to have Dave Meltzer on and find out what the heck is going on here.
Well, I mean, I think anybody who listens to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard is familiar with his feelings on Dave Meltzer. But it's interesting you mentioned Dave Meltzer, because there have been, once upon a time, you were either a Meltzer guy or an Apter guy. And I would love for us to get Dave Meltzer on the show. And
I would too. By the way, we did two different things.
Okay.
We did two different things. And that was back in the days of the kayfabe, where if the promoters would have found out I talked to Dave Meltzer, I would never have been allowed any access to the buildings.
But as you're going to find out today with our guests, we have Tony Schiavone and Jim Cornette coming up. And at the end of that, once Tony Schiavone had to go because he's a very busy man, Jim Cornette hung around for a bit, and I asked him about something you and I had brought up a while ago about the kayfabe magazines. And he had a fantastically convincing answer for whether or not Pro Wrestling Illustrated was a kayfabe magazine.
Well,
so
PWI, the wrestler, Inside
right.
Wrestling.
So we're not gonna give that away, but listen to the end of the interview. But speaking of podcasts and speaking of Tony Schiavone, Tony Schiavone was on another podcast. You know what that podcast was?
What was that?
That was the Rock and Wrestling podcast.
Oh, yes, and he rocked.
Yeah, hosted by Nick Newman. Wait, I didn't say that right. Oh, yes, the Nick Newman. The Nick Newman. That is how many? I think today there are 17 E's at the end of the. And Nick said that he is going to legally change his name to that, and we appreciate that. But we also appreciate his sponsorship. So let us tell you just a little bit about what the Rock and Wrestling podcast is.
Well, it's something I listen to, by the way.
Absolutely, so do I. It features guests every week from independent wrestling, former wrestling stars, and the rock and heavy metal world. Some of the guests on the show have included Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses, Flip Gordon, a guy that we're going to be getting on our show sometime soon. He beat us to the punch.
Well, it depends if the fans want him on the show.
That's true. Conrad Thompson, Jim Florentine, the aforementioned Tony Schiavone, and many more, including myself, Josh Shernoff, from the Apter Chat podcast. The podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and Buzzsprout. New episodes drop every Wednesday. You can follow them on social media, on Twitter at Nick's RNW Podcast, Instagram at Rock N Wrestling Podcast, and Facebook at Nick's Rock and Wrestling Podcast. Nick, Rock and Wrestling Podcast, thank you for sponsoring the Apter Chat.
Rock on.
So, speaking of rock and wrestling, it makes me think of rock and roll. And it makes me think of rock and roll jingle Tex, whatever this guy's name was that we talked to earlier.
I'm back here in your studio here. Glad to be here. But I want to know a little bit more about Blue Chew. And then when you tell me about Blue Chew, I was sitting on the side here listening to all this great Apter chatting going on here. And Shernoff says and so says and all this stuff. I wrote another jingle here about another old rock and roll song. But give me some Blue Chew.
All right. Were you saying give me some Blue Chew promo, or were you just basically holding me up for Blue Chew?
Doing both.
I'll tell you what, I don't actually have any Blue Chew on me, but I'd be more than happy to tell you how you can get Blue Chew. All you have to do is go to bluechew.com, use the promo code BILL, that's BILL, and you'll get your first shipment absolutely free with just paying $5 shipping. But what is Blue Chew? Blue Chew is not just for people with ED. This is for people who want to take their game to the next level. These are for the people who remember the days when they were always ready to go. Maybe you work hard, maybe you're tired. You need that extra boost and that extra boost of confidence in bed, and that's what you're going to get with BlueChew.com. BlueChew.com brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. But because they are a chewable, they work twice as fast as a pill. So if you're saying, hey, I'm kind of in the moment, boom, pop yourself some Blue Chew and you are good to go in no time. Blue Chew can also be taken on a full stomach. It is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package. So no in-person doctor's visits, no waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, Tex, can you tell us?
Well, it works.
We were going for no more awkwardness, but you're right. It does work. It is free if you go to BlueChew.com and use the promo code BILL. And Tex, you'll appreciate this. It's made in the USA.
Good old USA.
Yep, and since they prepare and ship it direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. So right now, we have that special offer going for our listeners, for our Apter Chatters. They can go to BlueChew.com and get their first shipment, as you mentioned, Tex, absolutely free using the special promo code BILL. Just pay $5 shipping. Again, that's BlueChew.com, promo code BILL to try it free. Can we hear what you have to say?
So I got something for you here because I've been jotting down some. I'm thinking some of the old classic rock and roll songs like Blue Moon, You Found Me Standing Alone. You know the song?
Yeah, well, if you're standing alone, you don't need Blue Chew.
Well, now, wait a minute. Let me... Bop, 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 Blue Chew. Ooh, I needed you for a love that was true. You saved my night, Blue Chew. You my delight, Blue Chew. What do you think?
I actually found that entertaining.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm entertaining, and Blue Chew will entertain her and you.
Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the Apter Chat. All right, Bill, we have 2 guests today.
Yes, 2 guests, and what's happening is so very exciting. The National Wrestling Alliance, the NWA, is celebrating their 70th anniversary. And in honor of this, the main event is going to be the current National Wrestling Alliance heavyweight champion, the American Nightmare, Cody, defending against the man that he won the title from at All In, Nick Aldis.
2 out of 3 falls.
2 out of 3 falls, old classic style.
Mm-hmm.
And the main event is going to bring together an amazing broadcast team. It's going to be Tony Schiavone, who was the voice of NWA and WCW for so many years, and the voice of one of the men who was always at NWA and WCW, and it was a real racket. And I'm talking about Jim Cornette.
I see what you did there. Yes, Jim Cornette.
Yeah, we had them actually in tandem discussing the National Wrestling Alliance and what's brought them to this particular event. And because we taped this fairly recently, we practically just sat back and let them have the show.
Yeah, there were 2 key things that I wanted to bring up before we throw to this interview. The first one is that we mentioned near the end that Jim Cornette is our first repeating guest, our first 2-time guest on the Apter Chat. However, after recording this, after recording this, Hulk Hogan returned for another interview.
Wait a minute. Let's be truthful. It was Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Yes, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Please accept my apologies.
And
Hollywood
also listen to that episode, by the way.
Well, then if that's the case, then Jim Cornette is the first double guest. If Hollywood Hulk Hogan and Hulk Hogan are 2 different people,
they are.
Then Jim Cornette is the and people are going to go, but Hulk Hogan had 2 and Sting had 2. No, those were one interview that we split into 2 things. That doesn't count.
Oh, he broke Apter Chat podcast kayfabe.
There you go. So the other thing that I wanted to bring up was that if any of you Apter Chatters have ever thought to yourselves, I wonder what a podcast of just Jim Cornette and Tony Schiavone would sound like, listen to the first 5 to 10 minutes of this interview because it's more or less just Jim Cornette and Tony Schiavone. As soon as Jim Cornette came on the line, the two of them were off and running, and Bill, it was relatively difficult to get a word in, but it was so entertaining that I just sat back and enjoyed, and so did you.
As did I. So right now, let's go to the Schiavone Cornette chat.
By the way, Tony, we haven't spoken in so long. You know, I was sold this bill of goods. No, I kid, but I was sold this at first that I was being reunited with you on commentary, and then after I said yes, they told me for one match.
Right.
Just so you know.
Well, you know, just one time is all we need, Jim. That's all we need.
Tony, I'm looking forward to it because after 28 years, I can cross this off the bucket list. I got JR 2 years ago one more time. Let me rephrase that. I announced with JR 2 years ago one more time. Now you, and all I'll need is David, and I did something with Bob Caudle in Charlotte a couple of years ago, so that counts.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's tremendous. Jim, it's been. Did you and I ever work together? Maybe once or twice back in the day.
Well, now wait a minute. Now, seriously, now you're big dogging me already. All those wonderful Saturday mornings we spent together, because I was like the third member of the commentary team at Techwood on the TBS shows. Every time the Midnight had a match, I was over there with you. But no, actually, remember the first time I ever did color was with you and David. Remember, leading up to the summer of the '86 bashes, I was in all those matches.
We're talking about David Crockett, by the way, correct? Just for everyone
David
here
Crockett.
who doesn't
I'm sorry.
know.
Well, he's a household name, so I just
He hit him, Tony.
It's like Cher. It's like, you know, Elton, and it's like Fabio, and it's like David. But anyway,
right.
Leading up to the bashes, because I was in all those matches with Baby Doll, with the Road Warriors and Dusty and Magnum and everything. Dusty just put me out there in that ridiculous Panama hat with Bubba and had me sit in and do color for like 2 months with you guys to just make people as annoyed as possible.
I know.
And that was the first time I'd ever done color, and I had no idea how to do it. I was just going out to be annoying as a manager. It was years later, after I stopped working with you, that I learned how to do it. So,
right. I knew you had done some with JR, but I really think that you had just kind of setting in with us. It had never been just you and me scheduled to be the play-by-play or just the two announcers.
Yeah, no, it was always either the difference in TBS or syndication, or then later on you went to the Promised Land for a year while I was in exile in WCW and wasn't on the TV much. Right. And then when you came back, I was on the TV less.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
It wasn't your fault, though.
Okay. Well, that's one thing that hasn't been blamed on me. Thank you.
Everything
else has. Okay. But I'm looking forward to this, Jim, because nothing else, just to be able to hang out with you in the back and be able to talk and reconnect and see how things are going on with you in your life. But I'm really excited about this. I'm excited about seeing you again. And, of course, I'm really excited about being able to call one of Cody's matches. That's going to be sensational.
Well, you know, and that's the thing. I saw the first match from All In, and they had a psychologically and athletically and et cetera, they had a good old-fashioned, to me, and that's not a dirty word, NWA World Heavyweight Championship match. And now with this being 2 out of 3 falls, which was, of course, Dusty loved those.
Right.
You know, we've seen and been in a bunch of them and called a bunch of them between us. You know, I think it's going to be a great opportunity to call a great wrestling match. And I've figured out now that Tony, doing this with you, I will have been on or announced an NWA telecast in 4 different decades.
Wow.
Holy smokes.
I am really old.
Yes, you are. But, you know, I was just thinking when you were talking about old-fashioned not being a dirty word, Jim, as you know, I'm working for MLW, Major League Wrestling. Pro wrestling has changed a great deal from back in the day that you and I were talking about back in the 80s. Sometimes I think it's for the best, and sometimes I'm not so sure because of just all the crazy high spots they do and all the gimmicks they use and the tables and the chairs and just crazy stuff. A lot of times it's just about the high spot, and it's not about telling the story. But but I'm really excited that 2 out of 3 falls will be able to tell a story.
Well, I've watched the 10 Pounds of Gold series that Dave Lagana and Billy Corgan have been doing over the NWA Championship.
Oh, they're so good.
To build, Cody and Nick Aldis, who both are. I look at those programs, and I had to be a fan because they're doing what I've said people ought to be doing. They're taking two guys that look and act and carry themselves and perform as professional athletes. They're given the reasons why that each one of them, their individual reasons for wanting to attain this championship, and they're highlighting the prestige that it has, and again, in modern times, but has had in the past, and why people should want it. And I think they've done a great job. And I'm with you with the crazy stuff, but now I figure the high spots doesn't even make me mad anymore. It's their bodies. I'm not going to be in the iron lung, as Jay Strongbow would say. But but now I just want all of the. I did ask and received assurance that with this NWA 70th anniversary event, there will be the Invisible Man will not be on the card. It's going to be a wrestling event, and we're going to be proud of it. We're going to have a fun time. It's actually, here's some more statistics for you. I spent every Saturday night of my life in the Fairgrounds Wrestling Arena when I first got into business 36 years ago. Not only that, but I was working then for Jeff Jarrett's father, Jeff's handling the local promotion, so we're going to be sold out. And I was working for his father 36 years ago, and 42 years ago, when I got in the business the first time as a photographer, I was working for Jeff's grandmother and first visited that building. I go way back with this stuff.
Quite a history.
No.
So does this...
not only 4 decades of announcing, but you've got 3 decades of Jarrett's, or 3 generations of Jarrett's you've worked with.
When was the first NWA World Championship match you saw in your home state of Virginia?
Okay, I saw, the first one was in 1978, Harley Race against Dick Murdoch at the Greensboro Coliseum. First one I saw.
As a matter of fact, that may be one of the matches on the Lost Mid-Atlantic Classics that I sell at JimCornette.com, but nevertheless, we won't talk about that now.
My first one was Abraham Lincoln versus, I forgot who the opponent was.
No, but Bill, you were there. You were there when Strangler Lewis first shook hands with Toots Mondt. You have been from one to the other.
I actually thought it was Jerry Lewis, but go on.
But I think I beat you by 4 years. I saw Lawler versus Jack Brisco in 1974.
So I have a question for both of you guys. Did you ever think that the NWA Championship could come back to the prestige that it currently has in the business right now and all the excitement behind it? Did you think that maybe those days were done, that it was a dead brand? And are you surprised that it's been able to have this resurgence?
Well, nothing surprises me in pro wrestling. I'll take this. Nothing surprises me in pro wrestling now, and time heals all, as we know. Mm-hmm. But, yes, I'm shocked because I thought once it was sold to Turner Broadcasting and they went WCW and they did all that they could to screw up wrestling, I thought that the NWA was completely dead. And then, of course, when Vince took over everything, I thought there's no chance in the world that we'll ever see the old NWA title and the old title belt. But I'm just absolutely shocked it's back and so appreciative of it, because that's what I grew up on.
And there's a possibility with now them getting Madison Square Garden, Ring of Honor, and New Japan, that whoever the NWA champion is at that point, whether it be Cody or Nick Aldis or someone else, that this could be the first National Wrestling Alliance heavyweight championship match at Madison Square Garden in New York. This would have to be almost pre-Vince Sr. days.
Yeah, and actually, I don't even think they defended the NWA title back in the 50s at the Garden Bill because they didn't recognize, remember, for a long time, they didn't recognize champions because of the New York State Athletic Commission.
I do remember that.
Here's the bigger point. The NWA in the 90s and 2000s, even, Howard Brody and Dennis Corluzzo did a great job in the 90s. They took it when there was 6 members and 2 were inactive, and within a couple of years, and we'd got, recognition on Raw, and they had almost 30 member promoters, but it was a horrible time business-wise for independent wrestling. And it became that these small promotions were trying to join the NWA to be big, instead of really what made the NWA was from the inception of the organization, the promoters in it were already big. They were the territory owners. They were the biggest promoters in the business, except for Vince and Vern. And so now, I think that, I got to say, you know, answering the question a different way, I didn't think it was going to come back like this. But what Corgan's done now is they're putting emphasis on the NWA title itself, and they've put it on athletes so far that have been able to carry the thing and carry themselves as professionals. And now the NWA champion is once again defending on big promotion events, Ring of Honor, New Japan, that didn't need to join the NWA to get big. But now at the same time, they have access. That's a touring NWA champion. That's what it was in the old days, you know, to the different promotions.
The NWA title now, of course, held by Cody Rhodes. I mean, we just, after he won the title, I saw him backstage, and I got goosebumps because, of course, he's carrying on the tradition not only of the title, but of his father, who you both were very close with.
Oh yeah, Tony. Well, you saw Dusty come in because you were already doing promos for Crockett when Dusty came in full time, right?
I was just about the same time. Yeah, Dusty. The first event that I went to, Jim, was Starrcade '83.
Oh, there you go.
And that was just about the time that Dusty started. I think, if I'm right, you guys may know, Starrcade '83 was kind of like the test run for Dusty to come in as a booker for Jimmy.
Yeah.
And then I started doing promos around that time. So yeah, and then of course throughout the years, you know, I working in the front office, I ended up, you know, riding from town to town with Dusty back in the Crockett era, like to Spartanburg and some other places. And Jim, I rode with you some places as well. But I got to know Dusty on a personal level and got to be very good friends with him and Michelle and the family. And that's what's so big for me. And I was not able to do All In because I had a football game. But this is going to be the weekend where we don't have a football game. We have a bye week. And so I can do it. And so I finally get to do a match for Cody. I know Nick, too, very well. But I finally get to do a match for Cody and be a part of that. And it means a lot to me to be able to say that.
Also, you as an announcer, you were neutral. So you could ride with the heels like us, or you could ride with the office big dogs and you know, and suck up. But I'm jealous of you because I never got to ride in a car with Dusty. That would have been, we got to ride on the plane with him with 16 people, but a car ride with Dusty had to be fucking hilarious and informative on a number of levels.
Sure.
But, when he would come in the interview days, and you'd been standing there, you know, for 6 hours holding that microphone, but Dusty didn't have to hang out with us. He was in his office being the dream and doing the, you know, genius dream business. But when they would call him in for an important town like Philly or Charlotte or whatever, and he'd come in, it was like a force of nature, and everybody pricked up because they wanted to hear what, you know, the dream's promo was going to be. It was just he was different.
Tony, at one point, you walked away from the business and you said, "That's it. I'm done. I'm not coming back anymore." And I got to tell you how thrilled I was to see you a few years ago at one of the wrestling conventions, and little by little you came back. So, you know, we always ask the wrestlers, I thought you retired. I thought you weren't coming back. What precipitated your comeback to the business?
Well, it started with Conrad Thompson getting in touch with me about doing a podcast again, and the podcast helped me pay for my daughter's wedding.
Right.
And then Court Bauer got in touch with me about doing MLW, and I originally didn't want to do it. But then when I started doing it again, you know, you go to these events, and everybody has a great appreciation for what we did in the past. I'm talking about, Jim, back when we were doing TBS back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
That still resonates for these kids, you know, and then through the 90s and everything. And so they have a profound respect for old school stuff. And I got to thinking, you know, if I can help them by whatever means to help them enhance their career, put their career over, I'm going to give it a shot. And so I decided to do that, and I'm just having a blast by doing it. And again, it goes back to what I was saying, time heals all. I thought that I could walk away from wrestling and not get back into it. But I'll give you a perfect example. I'm not that active on Twitter, but I do have a Twitter account. And back years ago when I would be on Twitter and tweet something about the Braves or tweet something about the Georgia Bulldogs, nobody on Twitter wanted to hear what I had to say about baseball or football.
That's right.
But they wanted to hear what I had to say about wrestling.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, I'm back. So there you go.
Did you follow it through the years that you were inactive?
No, I did not. Not at all. I did not watch when Raw was over, or when Raw took over on that in that March of 2001. The first wrestling show that I watched after that was Royal Rumble 2017.
Really?
Wow.
I'm so jealous.
I just
We
I just
all
stayed
are.
away from it. I just did. Yeah.
We all are.
You missed a little good stuff in there, but you missed a lot of stuff that gave me headaches and twitches and night sweat.
So
I'm watching a lot of that stuff now. I'm rewatching a lot of that stuff now, getting accustomed to some of the stuff, and it's some of it's pretty good, some of it's bizarre.
So, we kind of live in a time now where people are very nostalgic. There's a lot of television shows are rebooted and a lot of, remakes of movies, and everybody kind of, is running high off of nostalgia from the 80s and the 90s. Now, obviously, you've kind of, alluded to the, what you're doing now and everything. Do you think that that's kind of what's what brought you back as far as the fans, that maybe because you were gone, and Tony, I guess this question's mainly for you, but because you were gone for so long from the business, that people they're just so excited to kind of hear, because you were the voice of the NWA, of WCW for so many people. Do you think that the fact that you were gone for so long has really benefited in people wanting to hear you?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's helped me out. I mean, absence makes the heart grow fonder type thing. And I think by the time we were done, I was so overexposed. I mean, I called everything for WCW.
You did, yeah.
And I think it hurt me. And I also think that my commentary and my work at the end of it really sucked. So I really think that I was not good, and I think I was overexposed, and I think they had seen enough of me, and I think it was good I took the time off. But you're right about nostalgia. Kids who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, now they're big into nostalgia. This is the perfect time for me to get back into it, because the response that I've received has been overwhelming. When I thought that I left, that they don't want my ass anymore. I'm done. They don't want to hear me or see me anymore. And now I'm back and I'm enjoying it. And I did say two things were responsible getting me back. I wanted to be able to reconnect with Jim Cornette. That was number one. Number two,
you're the guy.
You told me it was me when I saw you 3 years ago.
Well,
come on.
The joke is not finished yet, Bill.
Go for it.
Okay. And the second thing, I got to see Bill Apter. His son Brandon had worked for us for the baseball team in Gwinnett, the Braves AAA team. And Bill came to see us, and I looked at him and I was thinking, oh my God, he looked like he just got out of a nursing home. I better reconnect with these people before he dies. So those were the two things that got me back.
He kicked my walker out from underneath me.
And Tony, you must admit, not only does time heal all wounds, but also nostalgia covers up a lot of warts, because we tend to get credit for the majority of the good stuff. We did more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff, but we still did some bad stuff. But we did more of the good stuff. So we get the past, because the people are just happy to see we're still breathing.
There's rose-colored glasses with everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's like, look, he's alive. See, I never looked very good when I was young, but now that I haven't changed much, it's like grading on the curve, and the people go, oh, you look great.
It's interesting you say that, because I think that's another thing in a business like this, where there's a relatively short shelf life for wrestlers. You've got, be it commentary or managing, I think people kind of look at you guys in almost an ageless way of just like, oh, why won't they come back? You can look at a guy who's, 60 years old who was a wrestler and say, okay, well, he can't come back because he's 60. It's time, his body can't do it. But I think now
or it's Jerry Lawler.
Or it's Jerry Lawler who can still just keep going forever. But I think that a lot of people are seeing that with both of you, because the personalities that you had, there really was no time limited in fans' minds.
Yeah, and see, and unlike Tony, I still look pretty good, and like, like a human should that recently, has been living instead of ready to be laid out and have words spoken over him, like poor Tony, till he goes under makeup.
Well, that's what happens when you've been married 37 years to the same woman.
This is why you got to see the NWA 70th anniversary show to see what they look like. Back in the day, we'll call it, Tony Schiavone, you stood there with the microphone. Jim Cornette, you came out with the Midnight Express, yelling and screaming. Today, somebody's standing there with the microphone, and the guy or the team coming out there has a list of words that they're supposed to go and do. Back in those days, it was give me 3.5, 4 minutes. Tell us about, Tony, have you seen this? And Jim, have you seen this, that the wrestlers today are more accustomed to almost being scripted?
Well, of course they're accustomed to it, but they're not doing a good job of it. And look, to me, that was the magic of what we did. It wasn't the wrestling matches because they were enhancement matches. It was the time that that Jim would come up on the set with me and David and bring, beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan or Loverboy Dennis up and talk for. They wouldn't really say, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. Back in the TBS days, they wouldn't say, go out and give me 3 or more minutes. They would let you go out and talk until Dusty thought they should wrap you up.
Right.
Yeah, well, you had an alleged time, but if you were going good, you wouldn't get the wrap, and if you were dying, you'd get the wrap early, right? Yeah.
Right. That was the magic of what we did back then. It really was. It was taking the talent that you had and making it work, and people wanted to see that. You watched it for the interviews. That's why you watched TBS.
I got one for you. We just talked about this and played this on my podcast, the highly rated Jim Cornette Experience that airs this week, this coming Thursday. If somebody sent me an email link to, well, there you go, yesterday in the Time Warp, but sent me an email link to one of our local promos we did at the office on Wednesdays in Roanoke. It was 1986. And I remembered it as soon as I saw it, because that was when we had gotten a complaint from Roanoke Lynchburg, from Falwell, the moral majority, whatever it was, the forces up there that say we were being too violent in our descriptions and threats on the promos, right? And with 20 seconds notice, I did 3 minutes on, I'd like to tell you what we're going to do, what Big Bubba's going to do and the Midnight's going to do, but some small-minded people want to dictate what we can hear and so we're going to slap them on the wrist. We're going to talk mean to them. I can't get more descriptive than that. And we did 3 minutes on not being able to be violent.
See,
and Jackie Crockett is back there doing that hee-hee.
Yeah, I know.
Were there ever times that you did interviews with Jimmy that he'd say something so outrageous you had to hold yourself back from just breaking up?
No, I think it's pretty. I was always, and Dusty always kind of taught me this, and I knew that. When I would hold the microphone for Jim and the Midnight Express was around, Bobby used to screw around with me all the time, put his arm around me or say something. He would even talk to me as Jim is talking. Right. So I would always try to get myself out of the camera shot. I would try to get maybe behind Dennis or behind Bobby or out. But I would be laughing. I would be smiling. I think there's a picture in Jim's book of me smiling at some of the stuff that Jim would say. If you didn't laugh, you didn't have a good time with it, then, gosh, you didn't have a pulse, right?
And besides that, in some cases, Tony had that stone face where he'd kind of smile a little bit and just shake his head like, oh, folks, this Cornette. But I was trying, a lot of times I was trying to get Bubba, because Bubba was a victim. He couldn't crack a smile. He was forbidden to show emotion. So he's there sticking his thumbnails into the side of his skin, trying to not to laugh.
Right. And whenever you'd see Bubba turn his head from one side to the other, you know that he was holding it in. I mean, you could tell it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, so who would each of you say on commentary has been your favorite person to work with?
Well, I can tell you it was not only Jim, it was obviously Ric Flair, and I enjoyed working with Roddy Piper a lot too. Now, Dusty is a foregone conclusion because Dusty was so entertaining. But I really think that you got to kind of slide Roddy in there because I did some things that maybe they didn't see on a national level, but back what Jim was talking about, back in the old Crockett garage back there, I did some wonderful things with Roddy Piper, especially for the first Starrcade, and those stick in my mind. I remember Roddy coming in. His plane had just landed, and they ran him from the Charlotte airport to the Crockett's. He came in with a Halliburton case, and he came in, and Gene Anderson said, "You're up." And he opened up the Halliburton case, and he had a dog collar and a chain in it. He put the dog collar around on me and pulled me back and forth by the chain and the dog collar back and forth on the set. And I'm thinking, wow, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. A guy who just ran from the airport, got in here, and was able to improv like this. So I really enjoyed working with him a lot, too. But, still, those were fun. But still, you go back to the days at TBS, and you go back and you think about the stuff that Jim did and the stuff that Arn did and the stuff that Flair did. You're not going to get better than that, and that's why those things stand the test of time.
Arn Anderson was so intense. I mean, I could watch his interviews over and over again.
Right.
Yeah,
and the amazing thing about
that was, Tony, that was like, you remember on the plane, I always liken it to the Dick Van Dyke Show where Rob Petrie has all the guests in his living room and they spread the furniture back and everybody puts on the show. That was a tough room. You had to be a good storyteller, good promo, or whatever the case. But you asked Tony about who he liked working with. He mentioned the wrestlers he liked working with. I was lucky to have a string of great announcers, starting with Jim Ross and Bill Watts in Mid-South, and then later on Tony and even bless him, David, but Tony and Bob Caudle he got him by the honker. Tony and Bob Caudle in Mid-Atlantic, and then JR came over to, TBS, and then, even the multitude of guys. I've been able to work with Vince McMahon as an announcer, which he, in his own way,
he was
kind of cornered the market.
Yeah, he was incredible. Unquestionably, Frobuscus has been injured. Yeah.
So I've really gotten a chance, and I've worked with Gordon Soley a few times,
Sure.
and in TBS, and so I had a string of great announcers to work with also in my announcing and managing performances.
My favorite time, people always ask me, my favorite time in the business was the Crockett era with Midnight Express, the Road Warriors, Magnum TA. What about you two? What was the favorite time in the business for each of you?
Well, let me answer this first. My favorite time of the business always will be when I first started, because I was a big fan, and I'm telling you, a big fan of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. When I was in college, I graduated from college, and 2 years later, here I am doing the interviews of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling guys. It was the most exciting time of my life. It really, really was, to be able to say that I watched Flair and I watched Steamboat, and now I'm interviewing them. And, I had seen Dusty. Dusty came in for some spot shows and things like that. I was just enamored by all of it, and it's still the early 80s to me is the most exciting time that I've ever spent. And it has to really be the early 80s all the way up until Turner bought it, that time.
What about you, Jim?
The crash, as they say. And actually there's been so many classic time periods in wrestling. I'm going to say the same thing, only for the Tennessee territory. You always love and have affection for what you grew up and first fell in love with about wrestling. But the Tennessee territory from 74 to 84 was mostly fantastic. But so was Mid-Atlantic wrestling of the modern period when Valentine and Wahoo kicked it off and Flair came in, the late 70s. Mid-South wrestling had an incredible run of the late 70s and through the mid-80s. Indianapolis in the early 70s. There were a lot of great times. Picking one is difficult, except going with the hometown promotion, the stuff that I first became a fan of and first got involved in, Memphis.
Tony, a lot of people still ask me to this day, they say, you know what, I know how to go to a school to become a wrestler. I know how to go to do, something else in wrestling, but I still get that question. I want to be a wrestling play-by-play guy, or I want to be a wrestling announcer. And, I answer them that, go to a local promotion, see if they can work their way into an indie group to do that. But what kind of advice do you give people when they ask you, how can I do what you used to do and you're doing again?
Well, I tell them to stay out of it and get a life.
Yeah, seek help. Seek help.
There is no. I was the Crockett's baseball announcer.
Yeah.
And they just happened to need somebody. I had no plan to become a wrestling announcer. I wanted to be an announcer. And it just so happened that I got my second job I got in baseball was with the Crockett's. And I remember being a big fan. I remember telling Francis, I can do this. Let me do it. And they let me do it. And then, of course, it escalated into a full-time career. Escalated. I don't know if that's the proper term.
It is.
But there's no really way to say this is what you got to do. The best thing to do is try with a local promoter, see what you can do, and see if if that's right for you. But I can tell you this: if you want to be a good one, you need to be, you need to realize that. And I always thought this: you are not the star. You're not. You're the microphone holder, and you're putting over guys, making them stars. If you got that in your mind, you may be a pretty good one. Gentlemen, I've got to run. I'm at the radio station, and I got a hit I got to do.
Well, thank you so much for doing this.
You've got people chasing you.
He does.
Yeah,
It's the law.
Right.
It's the law. But, Tony, before you go, talk about your podcast, please.
Okay, it's called What Happened When, WHW Monday. It's on the MLW Radio Network, and it's also we have a Patreon site, and it's me and Conrad Thompson that drops every Wednesday at 6 a.m., and if you're on Patreon, it drops on Monday. And we do videos on Patreon, but we talk – basically, what we found out our niche is we invite you to go to the WWE Network and put up an old show and watch along with us, and it's kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000 for wrestling. Yeah. So that's kind of what we do. And so I appreciate that. And, Jimmy, I can't wait to see you, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'll see you in Nashville on the 21st.
You got it, buddy. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
very much,
Tony. And, Jimmy, don't hang up. We got a question.
No, I would never hang up on you, Bill.
Well, I hope so.
I know we're bidding adieu to Mr. Schiavone.
We are.
Yeah, he's off now.
So now we're going to go old school wrestling.
Well, I thought he'd never leave.
Me either. Now we can talk about him. Old school wrestling. Jim Cornette.
I thought we were going old school Apter Chat because Jim Cornette's a previous guest on the show.
That's right. But
you're our first two-time guest on the Apter Chat. Yeah.
Two-time.
Well, I hate to toot my own horn, but toot. I bring the ratings, guys. What can I say?
You do.
I have that talent.
You and that guy, what was his name? Kenny Bolin?
He had some things to say.
The bowling alley.
The bowling alley. I know.
We can only hope to aspire one day to the heights of podcastingdom that the bowling alley received.
So we're going to go back to an old school thing here. I'm going to do this like in the old, and I love how people today say in kayfabe style. And I know you have to be an impartial broadcaster, but you have Cody Rhodes defending the National Wrestling Alliance Heavyweight Championship at the NWA 70th. You'll be one of the broadcasters against Nick Aldis, and I'd like to know who you pick to win this match.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I can see where Cody is definitely going to be as the good guy, as they say, the hometown hero, because he's right up the road from Georgia. And, of course, Nick's from the UK, and he's one of those foreign snobby menaces. So I think the people would love to see Cody win and retain and beat him the second time. But you've also got a situation where, people know the title doesn't change hands just willy-nilly. But since there was such tremendous interest in the first match and such tremendous interest now in the rematch, putting my promoter's cap on, it might only make sense if there was a different victor in this one so that they could go to a rubber match at a suitable location in the future, such as out in Madison Square Garden. You never know. So I don't want to publicly predict because I don't know what behind-the-scenes manipulations are going on.
I was doing total old-school kayfabe, asking you like a Sports Illustrated broadcaster would ask someone to pick a winner in a boxing match.
And what I gave you was a well-thought-out business analysis. But also, hey, and once again, Aldous is bigger. He's stronger. He proved, I think, that he was bigger and stronger when he pretty much manhandled Cody at All In. So unless Cody has another Hail Mary, like that top spread out of the Sunset Flip that he won the thing with, chances are that Aldous may overpower him and steamroller him. You could look at it that way, too.
You mentioned kayfabe, and I have a question for you. So a few weeks ago, Bill and I had a debate on the show.
Yes.
I referred to Pro Wrestling Illustrated and all of those magazines that everyone has affectionately referred to as the Apter mags.
The fan mags.
Yes. You're the only one who called them the fan mags. I think everyone else calls them the Apter mags,
okay.
but Bill just wants to be humble about it. But I referred to them as kayfabe magazines, and Bill disagreed with that and felt that was not the proper use of the term. So I wanted to get your opinion. Would you have referred to those magazines as kayfabe magazines?
Well, no, they were wrestling magazines for fans of wrestling that did not break kayfabe and destroy the illusions created by the promotions therein. But to be actual kayfabe magazines, they'd have to be fake things masquerading as magazines. They were indeed real magazines.
Right. That's the point I was trying to drive to Josh, was that the word kayfabe, like today, the younger people today, they say, "Oh, Bill, you worked for the kayfabe magazines." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I worked for the wrestling magazines."
Yeah, a kayfabe magazine would either be a magazine that was keeping itself secret from the world, or it would be a phony magazine that wasn't really a magazine but was masquerading as a magazine.
All right, now I have one other question, and thank you for clearing that.
I'm going to have to.
You acquiesce to.
I lost this debate.
All right, no,
I think that's official.
You definitely, Jim. Before we let you go, your book is still available.
Everything I've ever done is still available.
I know that.
I tell a lie. The Midnight Express book is out of print and a collector's item, but if you go to JimCornette.com, you can get the full line of Cornette's collectibles merchandise, including my DVDs, straight shooting series interviews with all the wrestling legends, classic wrestling gold, a 10-hour classic wrestling set for only $10, books and T-shirts and so much more. Listen to the Jim Cornette Experience every Thursday. Listen to Corny's Drive-Thru every Monday, where I answer viewer mail. See me on Fight TV on October 21st. I'll be appearing also at the Louisville SuperCon in November. I'll be at Fort Wayne's Heroes and Legends in October, and then I'll be at the Midnight Express 35th anniversary in Nashville, Tennessee on December 8th and 9th at the Nashville Comic Con, and then I'll be hibernating for the winter.
Yes, as you always do. Jimmy, thank you so very much for doing this again. And this was our first try at a tandem interview, and I want to do a lot more of these. This was excellent, and thank you so much for being part of this.
Yes, it was a menage a quattro there.
Oh, I like that. That's a good word. That's a good word.
Thank you, wonderful Willie.
Anytime
and I love
for
you, and I will see you soon.
Likewise, you know that,
thanks.
and send my love to your lovely wife.
I will. Bye-bye.
Well, that was a great interview with Tony Schiavone and Jim Cornette. It was a shame that Tony had to leave so soon. He is a very busy man, but we will certainly have him back again. And I have a sneaking suspicion we will bring Jim Cornette back again as well, even though he sided with you and I have officially lost. And in fact, the magazines, I concede, were not kayfabe magazines.
No, they're fan magazines.
They were fan magazines.
Fan magazines.
But I think we can all agree that they were the Apter mags, right?
No, they were the Stanley Weston London Publishing mags.
There you go. I knew I'd get you on that one. All right, but moving on, we have a segment, a new segment that debuted last week that we are going to bring back. Got great reviews, and we're going to bring back this week. And this segment, called the Apter Chat Classics, is brought to you by Smart Hold Message on Hold.
Josh, when I called you before we were going to tape, I was delighted when you said, hold on. There was entertainment. There was a message. I didn't have dead air. So where did How did you do that?
Well, as you know, I have an office here. I have a studio here where we do the Apter Chat. And I thought to myself, we put people on hold sometimes. I got to get Smart Hold. And that's what I did. So what is Smart Hold? Smart Hold is a message on hold service for only $35 per month. That's right.
That's it?
Only $35 per month. Plus, and this was something that I loved about it, no contracts, because I wanted to know that if I wasn't going to like this, I wasn't going to be locked in. Guess what? Contract or no contract, I love it, because what it does is it gives you and your business something to entertain your clients with. So when somebody calls, you can have anything. You can have a radio station playing or CDs, which are illegal, by the way. Maybe you have some really bad music that came with the phone, or even worse, you have silence, which with today's cell phones, placing a caller on hold to silence is pretty much a way to guarantee they're going to hang up the phone because they're going to think maybe they were disconnected. Can you afford to lose that call, Bill?
No, absolutely not.
I know I couldn't. And that's why with Smart Hold, they make your caller's hold time enjoyable and informative while making the caller's hold time feel shorter. Another great thing about Smart Hold is that it makes you sound more professional. With Smart Hold, you get pro voice talent, both male and female, unlimited message changes, professional script writers, broadcast quality audio, fresh background music, music licensing fees, and even a Smart Hold player should you need one at no charge. Now, a lot of people, Bill, don't realize that when you have somebody on hold, they are a captive audience. And what you want to do with that captive audience is you want to entertain them. You want to inform them about your product. Whatever it is, you don't want them to hang up. And that's why you need Smart Hold. All of this is only $35 per month per location served. And again, no contracts. So go to www.smart-hold.com and order today. That's www.smart-hold.com. Be smart. Get Smart Hold.
You know what?
What?
I think this would be a great idea. And I know Mac is listening. January.
Hey, Mac.
This January. Rage in the Cage. It's going to be his the final showdown at the Mathis Auditorium in Georgia, in Valdosta, Georgia. It'll be Mac against Paradise. And can you imagine you put a caller on hold and there's Mac or Paradise doing a promo that you can hear? Yeah, I mean, to me, if I'm a wrestler and or a sports entertainer and I get calls, wouldn't it be great to hear, Rage in the Cage is coming up, brothers? Yeah?
Is Hogan doing this?
Well, that wasn't the Hogan voice, but you know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, Smart Hold. Get it. If you're a wrestler, I think this is a great promotional tool for yourself.
Yes, and Smart Hold, as we mentioned before, is the sponsor of the Apter Chat Classics. So, Bill, what do we have?
Well, the Apter Chat Classic this week is very interesting because back in the 70s, one of the feuds that I followed and wrote about in the magazines and shot pictures of were the classic matches between the Brisco brothers, Jack and Jerry, against the Funks, Dory and Terry. And Dory Sr. got involved with a lot of these too. But the one-on-one matches between world champion, National Wrestling Alliance world champion, Dory Funk Jr. and Jack Brisco were some of the most fabulous wrestling matches I've ever seen. I even saw a 90-minute draw between the two of them at the Miami Marine Stadium. I never forgot that match. So for the Apter Chat Classic, on this particular episode of the Apter Chat podcast, I spoke with Jack Brisco, and this was before he won the NWA title from Terry Funk. I talked to him about all the problems he was having getting another match with Dory Funk Jr. to try and wrestle the World Heavyweight Championship from him. So let's take a listen to this short interview right now with an amazing World heavyweight champion representing the NWA, Jack Brisco.
Okay, what's going on now with the Funks and the Briscos? That seems to be making news even on the East Coast.
Well, I've been trying to get a match with him, with Dory Funk Jr., and I wrestled him on a couple occasions to a draw. And his father thinks that I've had enough matches with him already, and they don't feel that I should have any more. So Dory Funk Sr. and also the younger brother Terry has been trying to come down here and try to defeat me in order to keep me away from Dory Funk Jr.
Do you feel you have to go through them to get at Dory now, that he's avoiding a match?
That's certainly true, because his father has told Dory Jr. that he can't have any more title matches with me until I prove myself to either Terry or Dory Sr. So if this is the way I'm going to have to go through it to get to Dory Jr., then I'm perfectly willing to do so.
Okay, now there was something we had heard about, that Jack Brisco wrestled Dory Funk Jr. in a non-title match due to something Tarzan Tyler did, and you beat Dory Funk Jr. in about 20 minutes. Could you explain how this came about, why it wasn't a title match, etc.?
Well, the reason it wasn't a title match is because he was scheduled to wrestle Tarzan Tyler for the championship that night. When Tyler got hurt in an earlier match, and promoter Eddie Graham asked me if I would be interested in taking Tyler's place in the match, but it wouldn't be a title match due to I hadn't signed the contract for it. So I agreed to this and was able to defeat Funk.
What you don't know, by the way, Jack Brisco is one of the classiest wrestlers in the world. What you don't know is that he was one of the people responsible for me getting my steady job at the magazines back in the 70s.
Really?
Mr. Weston, yeah. Mr. Weston told me he had heard that Eddie Graham, who was the promoter in Florida, was bringing Jack Brisco to Madison Square Garden. And he said, you know what? I'm glad you're working for me part-time, but if you go to the Garden and you can get an interview with Brisco, you're in. And I went to the Garden. I got backstage. I talked to Eddie Graham. He brought Jack over. I said, I need 10 minutes for an audio interview for the magazine. And Jack said, I'll give you as much time as you want. And the story was called, it was my first story in the magazine, called Jack Brisco Tells It Like It Is. And
wow.
And he's no longer with us. I talked to his brother Jerry still all the time. And man, I loved Jack Brisco. He was a champion of champions.
Yeah, I unfortunately never had an opportunity to meet him. I did get the opportunity to meet Jerry at StarCast, and that was an honor. But yeah, I've never heard a bad thing about Jack Brisco, and I've always heard that he was a real wrestler's wrestler. It was really great to be able to listen to one of those old Apter Chat Classics.
All right, thank you. Well, Josh, next week on the Apter Chat podcast, we are going to be discussing the very first women's pay-per-view as promoted by the WWE.
Yes.
And it will be on their network.
And it is called Evolution.
Wait a minute. Evolution was Randy Orton?
Yeah.
Triple H?
I got to tell you, that was a weird thing watching on SmackDown 1000.
I thought so too.
Evolution's in the ring, and you can see on the screen behind them the promo for Evolution for the pay-per-view.
Really.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, did nobody think this through? That like we're kind of using the same thing. You know?
Maybe they should have called it Evolution.
I would have called it. I mean, I would have gone with like. Wow. I would have called it like Revolution or something, you know?
Yeah,
because they keep calling it the female revolution, and I don't know. But whatever.
So we'll talk about that. We'll wrap up some of the week's news, as we always do.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of controversy, another classic interview.
Yeah,
and like
you never know who's going to stop by.
Yeah, so for Josh Shernoff, where can they find you on social media?
Oh, please find me on Twitter at @SoSaysShernoff. You can even go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/SoSaysShernoff. But yeah, I love interacting with you guys and girls, and I love to hear what you have to say about the Apter Chat and everything that I have to ramble on about. Bill, where can they find you?
By the way, while we are rambling, Flip Gordon.
Yeah.
Is he going to be on the Apter Chat?
I'm going to call our social media gurus, and I'm going to ask them to put that poll up there to have it up Friday when this airs. So if you're listening to this, it's up there.
So when this hits the pod waves, again, there was that big issue whether Flip Gordon would be all in or not. Now we need to know, should he be all in on the Apter Chat? You can find me at Apter One Wrestling on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook with the name Bill Apter, or you can email me at bapter@onewrestling.com. And this is year 3 that my book is Wrestling Fixed.
I didn't know it was broken.
Has been published. And if you'd like a copy of the book, go to Amazon.com, go to BarnesandNoble.com, to any bookstore or any book dealer online. And if you'd like it signed, and you're not coming to one of my appearances, all you have to do is send me an email at bapter@wrestling.com with a photo of you with the book, and I will send you an autographed personalized sticker. Some people have had me do this already, so you can have your copy completely personalized.
And by the way, before we let you go, something else is going to be happening in just a few days. Someone's going to be celebrating a birthday. So I think Apter Chatters, I would like you all to send your best birthday wishes.
That on October 22nd? I'm trying to. Oh, Pedro Morales. Right. That's Pedro's birthday.
Wow. You know what? I'm going to take
any kind of birthday, baby.
No, it is our very own Bill Apter. We'll be having his birthday. Well, it's also Pedro. You know what? Send Pedro Morales your happy birthday wishes as well. But Bill, here I was trying to get the Apter Chatters to wish you a happy birthday. So Bill's birthday is on Monday, the 22nd of October. So we encourage you to send Bill not a happy birthday tweet, but a happy birthday video tweet. We would love to see how many of you Apter Chatters will send Bill a birthday tweet of you singing happy birthday.
And you know what?
To Bill Apter.
We will use that on the Apter Chat video channel.
Yes, use it on there. We will we'll retweet it. But most importantly, Bill, happy early birthday and many more.
Josh, several people are taking me out for my birthday on that Monday night. Do you know the town of Abington, Pennsylvania?
I am familiar with that town.
Somewhere between 6:30 and 7 o'clock, I'm being told that I'm being taken to my favorite lasagna joint. It's a pizza place, too, called Roman Delight. Don't tell anybody, but I will probably be there around 7 o'clock if anyone wants to drop by with any dark chocolate.
You know what? That's going to be between us. We won't tell anybody.
No. People coming from England for Roundtree fruit gums, sparkling ice drinks, money. But don't make sure you cut this out of the final tape.
We'll definitely cut this out. Yeah, we won't tell anybody where you're going to be. Where are you going to be again? Just so I know that nobody knows.
Roman Delight in Abington.
Roman Delight in Abington,
Pennsylvania.
Between 6:30 and 7.
Between 6:30 and 7.
On your birthday on Monday?
On October 22nd.
October 22nd. All right, I'll make sure to cut this out so nobody knows.
Yeah, but I want, in case you want to show up, I want to tell you about it.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
All right, that's fine.
Okay. Well, I think that's all.
Are we doing a wrap now? Is this the part where we're going to... So, everybody, this is Bill Apter once again thanking all of you, because without you, there is no us, as so many wrestlers say. And Josh...
Oh, we didn't plug where people can listen to the podcast and all that stuff.
Well, go for it.
All right, I will. Please follow us on Twitter at The Apter Chat. Go to Instagram at The Apter Chat. Go to Facebook.com/The Apter Chat, and make sure to go to theapterchat.com for all of our latest episodes, plus our archives, plus our merch, plus Bill's book is Wrestling Fixed.
I didn't know it was broken.
And that is everything that we have for you this week.
All right, and we will see you at the matches.
I don't know about you, but I never liked the old Happy Birthday song. So we decided to write a new one. It goes a little something like this. Happy birthday to you, oh, oh, oh. Happy birthday to you, oh, oh. Happy birthday to you, oh, oh, oh,
birthday to you.